Hello and welcome to another very special edition of the Defiant Open Metaverse Show. And today I'm very excited to be welcoming Santiago Portela from Fitchin, a Web 3.0 gaming community playground that's going to connect esports teams with their fans. Santiago, welcome to the show. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So, Santiago, I think it's probably fair to say you represent the Latin American part of the world. Can you give us a bit of a sense of your background, where you're from, and how your journey has brought you to esports and gaming? How did you get here?
Sure. It's been a long way. I grew up in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and 12 years ago I moved to the US for an MBA in Colombia, in New York, and I worked for several years in finance, but at the same time kind of doing some things in crypto and getting involved with that. At some point in time, we thought with some friends from school, why don't we build something? And in this search for what is there, we kind of stumble with esports and a big need that they have, that it's for esport teams to find another way of monetizing their communities or generating revenue and not depend entirely on sponsors, and for the fans to have more access to these teams, to have more experiences being done and not just social media. So on this search, we kind of start working on, okay, what can you offer these two parties, and that's how Fitchin was born, I would say, a year ago.
So it's probably worth giving people a sense of what Fitchin is. And this is your website. It's in Spanish, which I think is great. I think it's important that we have crypto communities that represent other languages other than English, and the Latin American community is huge. But I think there's also this sense that esports, in a sense, it blew up really massive, and we have these huge teams like 100 Thieves, for instance. Where do you think there's a lack of connection for fans? Where do you think they can do more? Because I'm curious. I always feel like esports is blown up and it's huge, and these teams are massive, but clearly they're not doing as much as they could, or there's not enough for the fans. Where's the opportunity here?
As you said, it's massive. We're talking about 530 million viewers of esports. So we're talking about a big market. Now, all the interaction, if you look at it, it's mostly social media. And this social media, it can be on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and also in platforms such as YouTube, Twitch, and so forth. But the interaction is up to there. There's little interaction, or it's limited to that interaction in social media. There's not that many opportunities to expand that interaction with the team, talk to the team, get access to that team physically, and also in a way of digitally, maybe experiencing metaverse or even an AMA for them in Discord. There's some disconnection there, and you see that on some public companies, esports public companies that file. They're public, so they file and the amount of revenues coming directly from the fans is 1 or 2%. So that's where these teams are seeing the lack of additional sources of revenue, and for the fans, additional ways of engaging with this community. And because it doesn't end with just going to one tournament once in a while to the finals, but they want more access, more things to do.
There's a lot to unpack there, and I think it's difficult for people to really understand the challenge for an esports team, because it's very competitive. It's very difficult to win tournaments to begin with, and there are some extremely good players out there, and they're all kind of moving around, and the contracts on offer. But fundamentally, the revenue stream for an esports team, it has to be brand sponsorship, building your own YouTube channel, getting ad revenue. And then if you're 100 Thieves, for example, you've launched a lifestyle brand, so you've got merchandising and clothing. But as you rightly say, if I'm a VC and I'm investing in these sports teams, I'm going to say, and rightly so, where's the revenue? And do you think you have the answer to that question now?
I hope so. As you said, the problem is if you depend too much on the sponsors, one bad result or something might pull some of the sponsors away, or some of the sponsors go into trouble. You lose that source of revenue, and you lack that stability on revenues. How we are planning on changing the way that or extracting more from the fans in a way, or having more revenues coming directly from the fans is our platform that sits on basically 4 pillars. One is being a member of the team, and by becoming a member, having special access. And that access can be, as you said, they sell merch. Okay, if you're a member of the team, why don't get special merch that is only for the members? Discounts on that merch, that clothes, and so forth. Experiences. Why not allow these members to have special chats with the team members, or coaching lesson, or playing a game against one of these super stars, and see how the big gap between the two of them, right?
Yeah, get pwned, get pwned by the expert. Yeah, no, I think we'd all want to jump in the ring. Yeah,
but it's something that you're looking for, and in a way, it's a cheap way of the team giving something to their community and having that engagement growth. Then you can think of events. Yes, they're a digital community, so not everyone is in the same city than the teams, but they usually have gaming rooms. They usually have some events that they can organize for their teams, and for their fans. Why not get them involved, and do some parties, some things that these fans are craving for, having more interaction. Then, and that goes also on another of the pillars, is tournaments. Being able to compete inside the community and see where you start from, and having access in a way for the teams to view your progress, and how good you are, and where you stand, or just play around and have fun getting into what competitive gaming is. Collectibles, allowing the teams to generate revenue through digital assets, and it can be digital, but also can be real, a twin in real life. And then those are all the things that you can work on, having a community membership, having a membership of the team, and allowing that interactions to be more close to between the teams and the fans. So I touched on a couple of things there.
Yeah. So if I understand this correctly, you see an opportunity for esports teams to deepen the connection with their fans, but it seems from what you're saying that it's for the enrichment of the teams themselves. What the fans get in return is more access. But is there a mechanism in which fans themselves are enriched monetarily, or it could be in other ways, by this deeper connection? Because what I'm hearing is it feels very biased towards the teams, but I want to know where the fans, where's that extra added value for the fans?
Well, there's a couple of things there. The experience is an enrichment for the teams, for the fans, having more access and more opportunities, and playing tournaments and so forth. At the same time, we do understand what you're saying, and we are also working on that. On anything that you do in the platform will generate energy, and you will have your avatar that will have the DNA of your team, and by growing that avatar, you unlock different types of benefits. And at the same time, if you don't want to grow that avatar, you can sell that energy. So that's in a phase 2, a deeper layer on what we are building. But as you well said, Web3 allows you to play around with that, and in a way enriching the fans with that. A more direct way is the tournaments do have prizes. So and we have been doing some tournaments. The last one was last weekend. We had 1,200 players playing Valorant, and with a prize pool of $800. So the winners there, they did get some monetization of their playing around there. So there's a little bit of everything for everyone.
So what does the scaled up version of this look like? Do you have multiple esports teams, a whole collectibles marketplace? What is the big picture for you?
Our big picture right now, we're starting with, we already have signed up 2 teams. We're close to signing up 3 teams. Some in Latam. The first 2 sign up, they are in Latam, but we're close to signing up 2 teams in Europe. And our view of this is a community thing. This is we want everyone to be here, or the big teams to be here, because there's a lot of engagement that can be done by having more than one team and having the community here. And with this engagement, I'm talking about, okay, you have the tournaments of your team. Let's talk about Crew, that it's one of the teams that we have signed up, playing against, you have the top 10 players of that of Crew. They are not professionals, they're amateurs. Okay, they can put on the jersey of Crew and play against Furious Gaming. And so now we have the top 10 of both communities being able to represent, in a way, their community, their team, without being pros, and represent them and get that experience of playing against. So if you have more teams, that engagement becomes even more interesting. And that goes also into our metaverse view on how we want to do it. We want to have our own neighborhood in the metaverse, and having the houses of each of the teams. And then you can have the experiences of moving from your house with your other fans into the stadium and getting an experience against the other team that is there. So there's a lot of, in competition in sports, esports, there's a lot of having all the other parties involved and not doing things isolated.
Yeah, I way back when I did some filming around World Series of Poker and the World Series of Backgammon, and what was really interesting was there's the tournament, which is fine, and that's the reason everyone comes, but it's the side games. So you get these guys with these massive money clips, and they just go into hotel rooms and play against each other. And it feels like that neighborhood is kind of a little bit of that. It's that idea that you have this competitive environment, but you also have this side environment where you can go and play against, you know, your idols and get into these kind of really interesting conversations with them. And I think that's, when I listen to it, that's sort of what you're offering up here, is the ability to be closer to your idols, to be closer to the action, and test yourself against it, but also learn from them and have that interaction.
And have fun. And that can go into, it can go playing against the pros, but also can be playing against the streamers that are part of these teams. And then you play in this mixed up of fans, streamers, and pros, and the interaction of that, it's what it's fun and what people are craving for.
It's, for anyone who's not aware of just how valuable esports teams are, the top ones, roughly $450 to $500 million valuation on 100 Thieves and beyond. I think 100 Thieves, I've done more research on 100 Thieves than anyone else, but I find it fascinating. It is, the thing that concerns me about esports is that there's so much pressure on the players to just generate content that they burn out really fast. And that's something that's, when you're talking about how easy it is for them to give up more access to themselves. On the flip side, is there a risk that there's too much content, there's too much access, and that the players could burn out? And how do you mitigate that? And is there something that can be done for that?
I think there's different ways of approaching this, and a way to see it is, right now all the revenue comes from the content that they generate. So they are 100% on the spotlight on generate the content, bring the money. If not, there's nothing there. By changing how you generate these, even the content, how you, the IP of, and before I was talking about the avatar and the DNA, that's a way of generating an IP for the team and pushing it out or away from the current generators of these revenues. Not fully, because obviously you're talking about an esports team and how they compete and how they play. That's a key aspect of it, but not putting all the burden on these people. So yes, you take it out. At the same time, you will need some help of them on making this interaction fun. It's obviously it's a different pressure play a game with a fan than generate a content that needs to sell for everyone to watch and see. So to make it clear, to make it short, yeah, I think that we're actually doing the opposite, taking away some of the burden by generating things that are not fully reliant on what they do and how they do it.
So to simplify it down, are you basically creating a revenue stream add-on to what they already do that opens up and or unlocks a new way for fans to get involved using blockchain?
Exactly.
Essentially, yeah,
exactly. And in a way, we see ourselves not as the ones that have the community. We are not the teams. The teams are the ones that have the community. We are, in a way, the bridge for the teams to get access to Web3 tools, and we are a service provider of the technology to do so.
Now, one of the things that I notice about, I mean, obviously our industry goes through these cycles, and the cycle is hype, and then it's the exact opposite. And so the struggle is always to persuade big enough names to jump in and be okay with when it goes down and the negative, the sentiment turns. I have this feeling though that large brands on YouTube or large esports brands are going to be really, really nervous about jumping into crypto. So what is your pitch to them? How do you persuade them this space is actually positive when everything they read is negative?
It's a tough one, and one of the teams that we have on board is Furious Gaming, and the reason for that is though they are not the biggest community in Latam, they are the oldest team, and they've seen all the up and down, and they kind of bring that experience on board and saying, okay, I've seen it all, and I know how tough this can be, and the opportunities that are also there. For the discussion with teams, there's teams and also with the fans, right? Because there's some disbelief of what Web3 can give them. NFT is kind of a bad word, and we
in gaming. It's horrible. It's horrible. But it's also, do you not think like with NFTs? I think a lot of the negativity has come from a very small number of YouTubers and Kotaku, obviously, that just said it's a scam. It's the worst thing ever. It's just extracting money from it. But I don't think it's that many people. I think deep down, actually, a lot of people kind of like it, but they're being told so much negative about it. They're like, oh no, mustn't touch it.
The thing is, at the end of the day, NFTs is just a technology.
Yes.
They gamers love digital assets. The amount of people buy in Fortnite, for instance, gives you an idea that digital assets it's there. It's something that they value. Then it's how you the technology behind it, so that they can do whatever they want with that. And that's kind of the discussions that we have with the teams. And it's we are not providing anything in a way new. We are packaging it in a new way, because a membership is nothing new. You have traditional sports, football, soccer. They have memberships for becoming part of the club, and you have a lot of that. Now, what we are trying to do is, okay, you have a digital community. How you unlock the value for someone that it's just digital in nature, and NFTs is a very good way of individualizing who is the member, who has that, and how to get the different access to different things and tools that we are going through. So yeah, that's kind of what we discuss with the teams, and we discuss with them how to unlock that value that they see that it's there, but until now they were not truly able to unlock because of the lack of the tools to unlock this.
And so what are those tools, if you can be specific about it?
If you think of NFTs, it's being able to see who has your membership and being able to drop assets to them, allow them access to a chat, or by just in Discord, you can give access to someone that have a specific NFT. And we're not talking about expensive NFTs. It can be pop or whatever, or $5 NFT just gives you access to this chat, and or giving them sending them a ticket to an event. Those are the kind of tools. And one of the teams, they have a game house, and they have problems on how they invite people to that to that gaming house. And by dropping them an NFT with a barcode, with a QR that allows them to get into the house, that's a big win for them. And that's a way of knowing who will enter and who will come, and targeting that audience in a better way.
In a way, the ETH wallet has become like a mailing list, in a sense that you can send people stuff, but it's also, I get a lot of spam in my Ethereum wallet. So at some point, like, this is going to get annoying. What is the kind of spam policy? How do you make sure that teams are kind of mindful about what they put out there? That's a big question.
It's a big question,
yeah.
Which I don't have the answer yet. But it's
no. Well, I mean, we're still figuring this stuff out, and I guess what the messaging should be is, and I keep saying this to people when I'm pitching some of the ideas that we have, is at the moment what we don't have is a product, but we have a process. And actually, who we need with us right now is people who are willing to explore that process and figure out what best practice looks like, and then go with us. But I understand how, like, particularly in esports, it's an uphill battle, because the community has been kind of told that all of this is bad, and you and I both believe it's not. But like, how do we get there? How do we educate the fans that it isn't bad, it's actually good?
We have to educate the fans and also the teams, and part of the process of onboarding a team is we have several meetings on what we can do and what can be achieved and how. We are pushing something new for the teams, and then once we have that discussion with the teams and they fully understand the limits of this, or the lack of limits on many of the things, and how to start going beyond what they are used to, then it will be the time of discussing with the fans and showing them what they can do. A way of doing that is pushing the discussion without actually talking about the assets or the NFTs, taking away all the language, the buzzwords.
Yeah.
Don't talk about NFTs. Talk about membership pass. Talk about digital assets. Talk about a ticket. How all these are. They are NFTs, but who cares? It's
who cares?
Who do you care what they are? Not how they are built.
It's like a PDF. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's a way of moving the conversation and going forward on that conversation. And a lot of that is also from our side to take the friction of someone to onboard. And with that, if you try to sign up in our platform, you connect your wallet, but you can do it through two ways. You can connect with the Phantom wallet, or then you can do it through Web3 auth using your social media. And if you do it that way, because you don't have a wallet, the wallet is created on the background, you don't even realize that happened. And that takes the friction of someone that is afraid of opening a wallet, or is afraid of what that entails. And without knowing it, they have already entered this world, and they have the possibility of doing much more.
Yeah, I had a really fascinating conversation with the team at Fox, and Fox has an in-house blockchain laboratory, and they're trying to get fans of wrestling and NFL and basketball into this ecosystem. And obviously there's a huge amount of friction, but you also got the sense from them it's not that difficult. Like the essential interface, which is the same that we're now using for banking, for instance, it's not that different. And so when people say there's all this friction, I'm not sure I agree. I'm not sure there's like one bit of it that has this friction in it, which is, oh my God, crypto, and then like KYC. But once you get past that, it's fine. It's really, really fine. And I think we make it feel like this massive burden or hurdle to get over, but I kind of feel like it's not, in a weird way. I don't know how you feel about it, but maybe I'm being over optimistic here.
It's getting much better, and the obviously I do think there's some friction when you open a wallet and they told you write these 20 words and save it in a very safe place, and don't put it there, don't put it, and okay, so what is this? I'm worried about not losing it, and then I'm also worried about not writing it anywhere, so I'm get frozen, and I don't want to go past that, right? And that's true. We were talking about money, so okay, this is really, really important. So what do I do with this? There's some projects that have in a way solved this, and Web3 also is one, but there's others that by getting a wallet using your social media kind of breaks that into the need of writing or getting exposed to that tricky place where, okay, what do I do with this? And in the future, probably you will just don't care, because you know how it works, and you will save those words anywhere you feel safe for, and you pass that. But for someone that is just starting, it's a roadblock, and you have to kind of help them jump it, or at least take them to another route that it's easier for them, and more they feel safer.
And if you think about how we sort of overnight we became used to using a fingerprint to unlock a phone, and then we used our faces to pay for things. I feel like it won't be that long till biometrics are basically the password or our passphrase to unlock all of this stuff, and then we just haven't kind of plugged all that bit in yet. So it probably isn't that far away.
It's tiny, the things that we have to solve to make it super simple, and we are getting there. And whenever that is fully done, we'll see a ton of people coming in, because we are not, as you said, we are not too far from it in a lot of senses. Just if you go to a game, and I like saying Fortnite just because how big it is, you have a wallet there. Okay, it's only inside the game, but you have a wallet. You have digital assets, and you have millions of people getting in and buying digital assets there. So,
but they all trust Fortnite, and they all trust Epic Games that this is legit and it's all going to function, because which
is reasonable. The only question is, when will people start trusting the crypto or the blockchain? And we already have 13 years of existence in with Bitcoin. At some point, that trust comes gets trickled down, and people get more used to it and more comfortable. And when you take some of the roadblocks, that will just be a massive, okay, this is the way it is, and it's simple, and I trust it, and you go for it.
So one of the names that jumped out at me when I read the first PR release that Waxman sent through was Sergio Cunaguero. How is he connected to all of this? Because as an Englishman, he wrote a pretty large chapter of the history of English football. So how has that come about? What's his involvement?
Just to give some background of him and esports, he when he was already in Manchester, he with the pandemic and everything, he started streaming and playing games, and he already was doing that, but he became more of a public figure doing it. He built a team in Latin America 2 years ago. That's Crew, which is part of the project, and it's right now is the most important LATAM Spanish-speaking team. So he's very much into esports and what is that. When we start talking to him, he was, as you know him, he's a star, and he wants to, and he wants to do, and he wants to be in top of everything, the top league of everything. He was a top scorer. He wants to have the top team in esports. He wants to, and when he was approached with this, he was thinking how far this could take esports, and how by becoming part of this, how he could enlarge the possibilities of his team and grow the boundaries of what is possible. And that's how he came into the project, and he came into the project not as a marketing figure for us, but someone that comes with a team, with knowledge of the market, with knowledge of the people, and in a way, a door opener, but also someone that we can chat with. Okay, how you approach a streamer, how you work with a streamer, how you work with a team, how you see this product impacting the environment, and how you grow the scene. And for him, the idea was this: how to grow the esports scene and make them bigger and less dependent on sponsorships, which was his main goal.
I remember I used to film a lot of sports back in the day, and like sports stars have a lot of time off because they need rest and recuperation. They just played FIFA, just non-stop FIFA and competitive FIFA. And like I just remember like Aguero is absolute legend in the UK, and I saw his name, and the first thing I thought was, they've just strapped this on as a PR stunt. It's just another one of these celebrity things, but he's not at all that. And that's really interesting for me, because there's two things to this. Our boss at the Defiant is Chilean. She was just down in ETH LATAM, and she's explaining the situation, speaking to a room of Latin American developers. She said it was off the hook that the Spanish-speaking world is going in places that is just exciting and vibrant and doing its own thing, and large enough now to not have to do what everyone's doing in Silicon Valley and everything else, which I think is super healthy. So I wonder if you can give us an idea of what is the scene for esports in Latin America, and what is it for blockchain? Because I honestly no idea about any of that, because I'm English and I don't speak English. So I don't have visibility on that, but I'm curious what it's like from your perspective.
What we have in LATAM is a problem of inflation, depreciation of the currency, and a way of or a need to run away from certain currencies. If you think of Argentinian, Argentina is the biggest case of running away of a currency, and with a lot of limits to move from the Argentinian peso into dollars, for instance. So there's a vibrant blockchain world there, in a way trying to solve that problem of, I want out of this currency, and I need one that it's stable, and that's why many of the people in Argentina are more fan of stable currencies than stable coins, than investing in Bitcoin or Ethereum or so forth. At the same time, they're using this technology, and they're getting involved into this, and that's it became a big hub of development and developers. For the esports, in a way, also it started a lot in Argentina, but it's more. But the teams have grown to different regions, and you have it's a digital community. So you have teams that are built of Chileans and Argentinians and from Colombia, from different places. So these streamers and many of the big streamers are from Spain. They have a big community also in Latam, though they are, each place is different, and their culture is it's a little bit different from one place to another. They have built a whole ecosystem of gamers and teams that goes a little bit across the whole region. And you have crew that has been very, very successful in building these communities in South America. And then you have some others that have been kind of pushing for Mexico and South America. And there's a little bit of both kind of ways of approaching this market.
It's a huge market as well. It's absolutely enormous.
It's massive. It's massive.
Yeah.
And the distances are very, very, very long. And some parts is summer, and some parts are winter. So how you approach that market, it's not an easy way because it's very different one tip to another.
Yeah, I'd never thought about that before, because you go from Spain and continental Europe to the southern tip of Chile, and it's like it's a completely different season down there.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And it was fun. I'm just mentioning this because not too long ago, one of the teams put a post on how cold the morning was, and someone from from Mexico was saying, "Here it's summer. What are you talking about?"
I mean, I have that the whole time. Like everything we do, we're dealing with a team in Thailand, but we're also talking to people in LA constantly. And so you just kind of, all I do is just ask Google, if it's this time here, what time is it there? And now I need to start asking, if it's this season here, what season is it there? This is the world we live in now. It's global, which actually brings me to a roundabout way of talking about the metaverse, because in the metaverse, there are no seasons unless you impose them. And actually it's an experience and everything else. But you clearly have a metaverse strategy, or at least it's very much part of the roadmap. Can you give us some glimpses of what you think about the metaverse, where you fit into that, and maybe what you're trying to accomplish with it?
Yes, there's a couple of things there. I'm thinking where to start with. Let's start with what we are approaching the metaverse and or our strategy there. The first thing we're gonna do now is we're building a house in the Decentraland, given that it's one of the first one or the few ones that are available now to go inside. So we are building a house there. We're planning a party. We're trying to build some experiences for the community to get there. We are at the same time planning on, as I told you before, on a neighborhood, maybe the sandbox, or where each of the teams have their own houses, and then you can start doing activations and things for brands, but also for the users, quests and things for to match. I don't know, you want to go to an event an event in real life. Okay, go to the house and do some quests inside the metaverse and get that traction to get those experiences, and then you can get a reward, and that's going to the party. That is kind of the first layer of what we're thinking of, or the first steps that we're thinking of. Second step is having your own gaming room or starting room, where you can have your avatar, your different skins, different wearables, different things, and put that on and go to the metaverse that you want to. And that's why we are metaverse agnostics, because we think that different metaverses have different experiences or different things you're looking for. That, in a way, it's what skins, what wearables, what things we are looking to build there. That goes into on the IP of the story of having energy, having an avatar, having DNA of your team, and building that world, that IP with the community, and voting on what you want to do with that. So it's kind of all matched together. at the same time, it's so big or so many things that it's not something that will be built one day to another, but a process that we have seen, we have put in place to get there. Why all this? And that's the question. Why the metaverse? And because you see all these metaverses, you don't have that many people there yet. And
well, I was gonna say the participation is a major problem, but when we talk about fans, you're assuming a certain volume or a certain scale of fans, and particularly in esports, you're expecting a lot. This is another onboarding problem, because now you want people to go and learn how to be digital citizens in a digital world and express themselves in that way. But I think it's just another game, isn't it?
In a way, it's another game. It's a game where you can interact with others, you can chat with others, you can play against others. And so, and again, we're just starting with this on the and not me, but all the metaverse are just starting. And we haven't seen a lot of people actually using the metaverses. And a reason for that is we are still figuring out what the metaverse is for, or which experiences are the ones that users really get engaged with and really like.
Did you see the Fortnite Travis Scott concert?
I see that there's a, when you look at Fortnite, there's a lot of people now that are going into the game just to chat around and talk with other friends. And,
but when I think about the metaverse, that is the one anchoring execution of a metaverse experience that really nails it, because it was 15 minutes. It's Travis Scott, well, like at the time was the biggest trap rapper in the world, and everyone turned up, and it was wild, and it was like nothing anyone had ever seen, and it was a ton of people simultaneously, and it just reminded you that that social experience, particularly given this intense focus by the pandemic when we were separated from each other, it's the very best expression of what the metaverse is about. When it's social, when it's you're able to interact, be a different creature, be a different version of yourself, but simultaneously be with your mates in that space, then I think we have something cool. But if you haven't seen it, there's tons of YouTube videos about it. But like, for me, that's always the one when, if I'm getting lost in the metaverse and what it could be, I just go back and I watch the people in that space and how much fun they had. And I'm like, no, this is a real thing, and it will be amazing. And we just have to kind of keep chipping away at it. But it's definitely that for me.
Yeah, I will watch that. Definitely watch that one. But it's in the concept. I agree with you with that. It's a social environment that we want to get there and meet with people and with your friends and chat and spend the time. All the rest of the things are kind of making it more cool, but the core is the social interaction.
Yeah, 100%, and I think that's what is so interesting for me when I look at not my generation. I'm not going to guess your age, but like we're probably not that far off from each other, and it's not even the one that followed us. So millennials, but even Gen Alpha. My kids are 8 and 10. I look at the way they play Roblox. I'm like, they get it. They get it completely. They've got like they just chat and they talk garbage with people they've never met before. And my daughter comes up to me and she says, "What does blackmail mean?" I'm like, "Well, you wanted me to explain this concept to you." It's like, "Well, how do you come across the term blackmail?" "Oh no, someone said I was trying to blackmail them in Roblox." I'm like, "Wow." I've got some stuff I need to learn here and to impart, but like that for me is that it's already happening, but it's just happening at a very young age with a very young audience who are not bound by the same things we are. It's fascinating. It really is.
My kids are the same age and they're playing Roblox. Their dream is becoming a YouTuber.
A streamer. Same. And I tell them, you know that daddy's a YouTuber. Yeah, but Not like this crazy person who's just shouting on about Minecraft all day every day. I'm like, no, I can do that too. No, your daddy. It's
Yeah,
hilarious.
it's a different generation, but yeah, it's that what it's that where it's going, right? It's the ability to interact with others and while playing, while having a good time, and
Yeah.
making it simple for a 10-year-old, 9-year-old playing this and getting in and just managing around. And that's
And like I remember some quote from someone saying, I would love to be an esports like player, tournament player, but I'm too old, and they were 20 years old. I was like, what world is this? This is insane. But you know, that's where it's going to start, and that's the generation that's going to really take these things and explore them and run with them. And we're just the people that are building the tooling for that, and that's very, very cool.
Yeah, being able to help them, having these different tools and different things, and move it forward. That's where we come and what we're trying to achieve. I'm not gonna be the streamer that everyone wants to buy a skin of. I'm not gonna be the company where that have 1 million to 5 million of followers. You have those teams, you have those communities. It's just giving them a place that they don't have right now.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Santiago, how do people get involved with Fitchin? What should they be looking out for? Particularly, like how do we get in touch? What should we be looking out for? What's the message from the world of Fitchin?
The first thing is our social media. We have Twitter, Fitchin GG. We have our Discord. We have our platform. You saw that. It's also in English. Don't worry. It's fitchin.gg/en. It's in English. Or if you have a user, you can get in English. We are having the tournament. You got it in English? Yeah.
I got it in English. Yeah, no, I was able to follow your instructions, and I typed it in, and I'm a winner now.
So we'll have the tournament platform coming in pretty soon. Next month we'll have hopefully the tournaments in our own platform, and we'll have the community hub coming in in October. So stay tuned. There's a lot of news coming on. There's a lot of things that we are already building or finishing building, and we are making it public. And we are quite excited of everything that's coming on.
Well, listen, Santiago, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you, and I wish you all the best, because I mean, as you can probably tell, I'm also a bit of an armchair fan of this space and everything that's been built there, and fascinated by the creators in this space, the teams, the games themselves, and everything involved in there. So I wish you all success. And we are now going to go to a sponsor's message. And when we come back, we will have Brendan Hill, the producer of Coinbase's Degen Trilogy, to talk about everything that went down there. Thanks, Santiago. All the best.
Thank you.
Are you building dynamic NFT drops, on-chain DAOs, or complex Web3 applications? Do you need streamlined solutions to deploy pre-built or custom smart contracts without exposing your private keys? Thirdweb is a free, open source, and multi-chain developer tool for devs of all skill sets building on the blockchain. In less than 7 months, 50,000 developers have launched more than 200,000 projects across the platform. Take advantage of a robust set of front-end and blockchain SDKs, popular UI and UX components, and Thirdweb deploy and release, the most secure and streamlined framework for displaying and deploying your custom smart contracts. Thirdweb has powered major brand projects including NFT drops for global gaming powerhouses, 100 Thieves and Fnatic, and more recently with Boohoo, a global fashion label welcoming its fans into Web3 with the launch of the Boohooverse. The future is here. Start building for free on Thirdweb today.
So we do have Brendan Hill on the stream. He is technically here. I think he's gone to have a little bathroom break, but he might be back with us. I can hear him. So Brendan is the producer. Oh, hey, there he is.
We are here. Thank you.
Hey, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Really a great pleasure to have you. So I think the first thing to ask is, who are you and how are you connected to the Degen Trilogy?
Sure. Well, my name is Brendan Hill. I've been in LA, my goodness, 14 years now. I come from a more traditional sort of Hollywood background, theater before that. I mean, I could get into like the whole story without hopefully boring you. The Degen Trilogy actually came to me really suddenly and quickly. I think I had spoken to Pete Van Auker and Andrew Sweat, who are the members of the Icelandic Pony Company. They had previously worked in the animation space as well. Sort of some cross pollinations of producers that we knew. And, this project was, to say the least, moving very quickly.
Well, yes.
So it was that project was very much like a jump on board. Let's get this going.
So there you are listed under the producers. I want to get back to the Icelandic Pony Company because I do my homework on these things and I
Sure.
couldn't find anything about them. And I saw them in the credits. I was like, okay, who are these people? Partisan, I know intimately. Like I used to direct music videos back in the day. Partisan were always like just did the most incredible work. And so when I saw that they were involved in all of this, it made me sit up and take notice. And you watched the review I did of the Degen Trilogy, and which is why we ended up having this conversation.
Yeah. Sure.
But where I would like to start with this is to give people who don't understand what the production process is like.
Sure.
Just a picture of what it's like to produce something like this.
Right.
Just the physical production of it. Like how does an agency approach it? How does the production company get to you? What are all the moving parts that end up creating the finished film?
Yeah. To be completely frank, for me, this was a new experience, right? Which is why I was really interested in being a part of it. I hadn't done, I'd done a few commercial projects, but nothing to this scale. And I came just recently off of like a feature film, an animated feature film, which is a much slower moving process, much more intensive development process too, that, these projects are in development for years. The production process on something like this, and again, my first time going through it as well, but my understanding was, Coinbase. So if you look at that producer list, so William Swan is at Coinbase. He's their director of entertainment and culture, I believe is his name. So it's William's baby in terms of like a project. Andrew and Pete were brought in through Partisan. They've both been in the animation space for a while. I know Andrew worked with Lord and Miller on the Lego projects and things like that. So they have a pretty extensive animation background as well. And they, I would say, in this group were sort of the Web3 stewards, I would say, for, to be honest, for folks like myself and Eileen, who come from a more traditional like animation producing background. So because of the, we obviously had an objective to show this at NYT NFC. So in the time allocated to this, it was a very truncated production schedule, unlike a traditional CG film or 2D show or, however you're doing it. I came from DreamWorks in the animation space. So something in a traditional sense would be, you're taking pitches from creators, from writers. I was a development exec for a while too. You're taking these ideas, you're taking this baby of an idea, putting it into your development pipeline, and that thing's going to sit there for months, years, etc. It's sort of like the Hollywood pipeline. This was we're going to develop as we go, because the end date was the end date. We have this objective. We have sort of a mandate to make something extremely high quality, which I do think we achieved.
You did.
And I think in especially given the parameters in which we were, like, I can say, like, showing it to producers I know, or as I jumped on this project, telling other producers I know, and like at Netflix or wherever, and they're like, there's no way you're getting this done by June. So that alone to me, and I think the other producers, were an extreme accomplishment. And our director, Lauren, like, really, everyone worked extremely tirelessly on this thing. So that was a great experience. In terms of, just to like circle back to, I guess, what your question was, in terms of animation specifically, as opposed to like a live action project, you're looking at your vendors. So we ultimately, like, you're as strong as the vendors that are going to be, the artists and the animators and everyone that's going to be, your production pipeline is servicing. So we had Light VFX out of France, and Picnic out of the UK did our 2D work. And I mean, you can see it in the end result, but Antoine, the team at Light, were just absolutely incredible. They, I think everyone knowing, Coinbase is a large entity, Partisan is a large entity, Light, they're starting to do their own films and whatnot as well. So I think it was very important for everyone to like showcase a high quality, piece of CG, tying in the 2D as they go into sort of the Coinbase building. I think it was very important too, in terms of like artistic intent, because the film ultimately, and Lauren should speak to the creative way more than I ever should, but just that the film is a love letter to the Web3 space, the Degen community, a space that I was completely ignorant about before joining the project.
Did Lauren know it at all?
She did. I think her and the writer worked closely together still. And he was someone that has been in the space.
But you say Steele.
Yeah.
We should say the full name. So what is the full name? Steele Nevenson, which is a pseudonym, obviously.
Yeah. No, he's a great guy. I got to, with all of the Web3 stuff, it's, who is this person behind the handle,
yes,
and things like that. So I did get to spend some time with him in New York when we premiered the film, and just a brain that just keeps going and is fascinating to me. He's been in and out of the space. I don't want to really speak to his experience because I don't know him that well, but I think what he did bring was like, and you can see it sometimes at varying degrees of success, as your review would say. But I think that, I think the challenge from a production standpoint is there are so many components to Web3, and it's still sort of this thing that is constantly fluctuating. So when you do an animated film, you have to have everything blueprinted from day one, right? And you are going and you generally make the film multiple times. So you're boarding you have your ideas, you have your script, and then you're boarding the film, then you're putting those into animatics, then you're going back, you're re-editing, you can pull out
just remember our audience, so they won't know what boarding means. Boarding means
storyboarding.
Yeah. So a guy draws
yeah,
like little sketches that you then turn into a more sophisticated animatic, which is just like a rough animation. Exactly. and then like you go, oh, this doesn't work. And then you go back to part one.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of the animation pipeline 101, right? Is you have an idea, whether it's the Degen Trilogy or a DreamWorks feature film. You have an idea, comes in as a script. You have key creatives on it, writer, producer, director. That project goes through a development process with a development executive, where you're fleshing out the story, fleshing out character arc, fleshing out, if it's a studio, you obviously have like franchise goals and business that obviously business goals that affect story as well sometimes. And then ultimately when a film gets into production, the first thing that happens is your visual development, which is your key artist, production designer, character designers coming in, doing multiple rounds of designs on these characters until sort of all the powers that be agree on a unified look of the show, a design for the characters, all your BGs, your backgrounds, your matte paintings, everything that sort of gives the world its shape and artistic language, so to speak. So, and then once, as that's going through the pipeline, you also start actually boarding the story. So you have a team of storyboard artists that are taking sequences. Like if it's a longer film, we break down the film into several sequences. They go in and they storyboard out the script. So they'll get a few pages of script, they'll board it out. And storyboard artists really are storytellers in their own right, because they a lot of times on the good projects have a lot of latitude to sort of like plus up the story, add action. You know, when you're reading a script, you see it in your head, and it's in a whole other thing to like see it actually drawn out and thumbnailed. Once a thumbnail pass is done, it is cut together. It's not quite animatic yet. It's sort of like a choppy version of storyboard drawings. We would review that and then to make notes on that, and then we go on another pass to then be more of an animatic, sort of connecting the points of action, so that when you watch it, it is a 2D storyboard animatic of the film. So you sort of watch an entire film in 2D storyboard drawings,
and it sucks.
Yeah,
and it sucks because it's emotionless and it has no sound and it has no music, and it's just like this is the vague kind of construction of I guess the best way to look at it is like, you know what a word is, and you know that if you put that word here in front of that word, then you have a sentence. There's no poetry in that sentence at all, but it will be understandable as language to other human beings. That's basically as raw and basic as it gets. And I think that's the thing that people don't understand. There's so many NFT projects that go, we're going to do a film, we're going to do animation, we're going to do a video game. You're like, you don't know shit, because you don't know the process and you don't know the craft. You don't understand like the physical process of creating, as you said, a look for a character and how many iterations that has to go to for it to even vaguely look like it could compete with the best stuff that we see all the time from, you know, multiple media sources that we consume. That's the battle here. It's to be an original voice, but also feel like it sits in the continuum of what is considered quality media. It's a rough one. It really is.
And then in the animation space, you're not taking a camera, placing actors in front of it on a set and, you know, hitting record. You have to literally what's
create everything.
Blue sky, but you do have to create everything. So it's like, what is that set going to look like? What are our characters going to look like? Are they going to be, you know, realistic looking? Are they going to be squash and stretch characters, you know, like a SpongeBob or something? So it like you're given absolute blue sky free reign. You can create whatever you want, obviously limitations of time, budget, you know, talent.
But also in this instance, the limitations of the base IP, which is the Bored Apes, which are problematic, I would say, from an animation standpoint, because they have no legs. And every 3D iteration I've seen of apes, for me, doesn't work. They work best as 2D portraits with no legs. So the moment you start to expand that, they fall apart. They lose the weird constipated charm that they have as things. That's a real problem if you're an animator. And there's Snoop and Eminem video again. I don't know if I really dig it. Like Timbaland did a video. No one for me has executed Bored Apes right yet, and that's because I think it's really, really, really hard. And yet they have to be in the video because it's the Degen Trilogy. It's related to Bored Apes. So how is that? How is figuring out how to dovetail a specific vision from the director and from the animation team with a very rigid piece of existing IP?
Sure. I mean, I think the industry, even in my experience, has had to do as like Batman is over my shoulder, but like,
Yeah.
you know, we have examples of comic books, right? Graphic novels, you know, video game IP that is then turned into like narrative content, whether that's like TV shows or films. And obviously, generally, you're taking IP that's already beloved in some way, shape, or form. So the people that love that IP have like a strong sense of what it looks like, how it should behave. And I think what's I don't know, I'm a comic book guy, so what's similar to comic books in to me into something that like NFTs is, you know, it's a static image where my brain, my imagination is connecting panels, right? When I see a Bored Ape, if I own a Bored Ape or if I'm involved in that community, like it's wonderful to see like the backgrounds, the names that the owners created for these apes. Like they have flushed out a whole narrative and mythology for their own apes, right? So not only do we have a brand that obviously we have to pay homage to, but also like the owners of the apes too, and sort of like staying true to like the narrative they've created for their apes as well. And then having a NFT that is a like a static image, right? Everyone has a different imagination. Everyone imagines how their ape would act or move or, you know, exist in a space. So our challenge was we have this very, you know, high-end looking CG environment, but we knew that, you know, the apes are a 2D property. And so we wanted to mix the 2D with the CG within the space. So obviously they exist in the CG body, but it's a 2D, you know, Bored Ape face. They don't do a whole lot in the film. I think, again, it's probably more a question for Lauren. I can say from a production standpoint, I think, you know, staying as true as possible to the Bored Ape Yacht Club and what Yuga Labs is like put out there was our objective in terms of like, we didn't want to distort the apes. We didn't want to sort of, there is no reference material for like what these apes look like in a 3D. There's no turns. There's no design. When you design a character for animation, you're doing T poses. You're doing facial expressions. You have all the templates to then go in and animate this character. We had one image, and so
that's what's so weird about the whole Bored Ape thing is that, in a sense, they're kind of shadow puppets that you're forced to fill in the gaps with your own imagination or your own entrepreneurialism. And yet here we are taking this very traditional, very well established, very high end production process and asking Bored Apes to exist within it in a way that isn't cringeworthy and functions well. And I think the way you did it was right. But every time we see the apes within the film, for me, it feels odd. I was trying to think about, do you remember the Pink Panther movies from way back when, like Inspector Clouseau? So the Pink Panther would appear in the title sequence and it would be this sort of mischievous presence in 2D.
Right.
And it was charming and wonderful, and then it would just disappear. And then the real film could begin. But that sense of that cartoon presence, that's what this feels like. Sure. It's just that was live action and this is CG animation and beautiful and gorgeous. And I cannot stress enough how high quality the work that's gone into the animation in this film is. Like, separate what you think about the script, the work, it's phenomenal. And I think that needs to be stressed, because like there is, for me, a disconnect between the two elements of this. Sure. And I wonder how much you struggled, if there was a struggle, and if you can talk about that, between the demands of the brief and the demands of just you as creatives trying to do the best work you could for the project that you were hired to work on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to step on Lauren's creative vision. I think, you know, specific questions like that are best answered by the director. I can say from my point of view, in terms of a production process, there wasn't a whole lot of time to stop and ask a lot of those questions, you know. We were absolutely blessed to have a studio like Light that you just knew you had so much faith in like what the end result would look like that you could skip a traditional part of the process when like you bring in a vendor, you do animation tests, and you're like, what's this going to look like? I've never worked with this vendor before. Obviously, I've done work on this show or this show or this show, but ultimately, is the product going to look like what we think it is? Also, you know, Coinbase and you know, Bored Ape to extent wanted sort of the Web3 community, the involvement sort of to coincide with like the filmmaking process and launch with their website and things they were doing, which is we had done a DreamWorks, like an interactive episode before, but certainly it's not the most conducive way to do animation, because once something's built, it's now built. It's now in the pipeline. You're moving this whether it's a character, where it's like the cup he carries, the color of the parachute, the location, whatever it is, that is now in the film. It is now part of the pipeline. It has to go through lighting, rigging, effects. Like you taking something out and redoing it is essentially breaking it, which you do often, but in the amount of time you have and the money you have, you can only do it so many times. So adding in sort of the interactive element of it, and I think too, what was fascinating for me and extremely challenging, which is why I was really interested in being in this space, was Web3 just, it changes so quickly, right? Just like one tweet or one, you know, Reddit, you know, field or Discord, so even from Coinbase, you know, I can't speak too much into it, but like even the mandates or sort of the creative asks from the client side were changing as well, right? In order to sort of like meet the expectations of the community, meet expectations for their NFT marketplace. And you know, it is a branded film. Obviously, it's not, you know, that there are things that sort of had to be there, or certainly were desired to be there, that were part of this in order to like make it feel like a love letter to the community. Whether or not, you know, there's too much of that, too little of that, I'll let you be the judge of it in your review. But for me, from a production standpoint, it was Eileen and I trying to figure out like, okay, how do we get this done? Like at the end of the day, like it was just okay, and
still be proud of the result, because I come from the same background as you,
right?
Striving to get to like 1% of what your vision is, and it's like we fight for the biggest budgets we can, because we believe with money becomes freedom, and that often isn't the case. And sometimes indie projects give you the greatest satisfaction.
Yeah.
And what's ended up happening is I've come to YouTube, because the thing that I wanted to do was just create, and doing it on a lower key level, and being happy with it being 80% of what I wanted to do, but being able to iterate extremely fast. That's the Web3 way. And you learn to live with imperfection. And the problem with animation is that you can scrutinize every single detail, every single detail. And it becomes this, it's like color grading. You can look at an image and go, I can change that. And suddenly you become colorblind. And I feel like animation can often do that, which is why when you see a great animation, you're like, they got through all of that and it still looked amazing. And and nobody sees that struggle of just stuff not working, and knowing like,
if it doesn't work,
if I shoot something and I take a physical human and I don't like the take, we do another take. You don't get that luxury in animation. That's like everyone looking at you going, well, that's 3 weeks work, motherfucker. And you're like, oh god. I was listening to a podcast with Lord and Miller, who are like, for me, just amongst the greatest alchemists when it comes to scripts and animation. And they're like, yeah, we've got 75 animators, and each one of these is like a specialist in this particular type of comedy. And you're like, oh god, it's brutal. Nobody has any clue, which is why when people just dunked on this film really hard, I was kind of saddened, because I looked at it and I went, I see the craft, but I also see the problems. And I wanted to try and make a review that reflected at least some kind of nuanced and filtered understanding of this, to separate the script, which I think you and I both probably understand is the hardest thing to get right, and the hardest thing to find a good version of, and yet everyone blames the film or the filmmaker when the script is the problem. But how did you feel when you did you read any reviews? Did you see what the reaction was?
Yeah, I mean, I try not to look at that stuff, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like
of course.
it's you move on and you do the work and you do the next one and the next one. I think, in terms of narrative, because I was also a development exec for a while, so I think, it's the time, money, quality thing, right? Like if we had more time to develop the script, if we on a traditional film, if it's a 90-minute animated feature, right, you've broken your movie down to several sequences, and some may work and some may not. So in order to stay on budget and keep the pipeline, the CG pipeline moving, you can pull sequences out, and generally you order them in how you feel most confident. So like the ones where like, okay, this scene is hitting, this scene's doing great, we can move that on to the next step, because they have to go from, the animatic, then we're going into layout, where it's just like CG models that have no expression, no acting. A lot of times they're moving around in a T-pose like this just for the blocking of the camera. Obviously you're looking at that and you're like, oh God, that, this isn't funny. I'm not feeling the heart. And you have to have the faith that like throughout the next
trust
step,
the process.
The process. When the animators get in there and they're bringing life into these things, that it will get there. Doesn't always. And then you take that sequence out, you may reboard it, you may go back. It kind of depends on what your budget will allow. We didn't have time on this. I mean, that's sort of the long and short of it. And I think like on any traditional film at like a studio, you also have a lot of voices in the room. And obviously we had a lot of voices on this. You have Coinbase, you have Yuga Labs, you have, we had an agency on board. Obviously we had Partisan, we have the directors, then you have your vendors in Light that have their own amazing creative ideas, Picnic. So
I'm missing a voice there though, which is the voice of your audience. And you talked about it being a love letter to Web3.
Sure.
It didn't hit for Web3, and it didn't come across as a love letter to Web3. It came across as a sort of cheap facsimile of what it means to potentially be someone who might look at Web3. That was the issue with it. And so I wonder, can you give us a sense of what those conversations were like in the room discussing that component of it? Because it must have been important that it hit that. But like for me, I think you didn't have that voice in the room. And if you had, they would have made some very challenging remarks about what was being put forward. But it feels like it wasn't there.
I mean, with any project, right? Especially something like this that is quote like a love letter to Web3, you have, and then when you have an entity like Coinbase, which were honestly pretty wonderful throughout the process, but they're using this film to sort of launch this marketplace. Obviously they have sort of, I mean, any film has an agenda, whether it's a creative or it's a business agenda or whatnot. So you can find this, and I worked in independent film for a long time, where you find this middle ground of like artistry versus like commercialism. And you hope that like the two are intertwined in a way that like the movie is like artistically pleasing and makes sense, and you love the characters and the drama is great, and the story has this amazing 3-act structure, and you feel like there's a payoff at the end, while at the same time being at least broad enough to find an audience, right? To sort of appeal to who you're making the film for. I think with our project, without speaking too much, because quite honestly, I did not have a ton of time to be involved in the creative. I think in watching your review, as someone that doesn't know a lot about the web space, the Web3 space, I do understand sort of the critique that, it seems like the reaction is like, well, it was too broad for sort of true Web3 degens, if I'm even using that term correctly, and then too sort of keyword or just the nomenclature of the space, like just sort of cobbled together. Where
well, it was like it was like Vanilla Ice. It was like Vanilla Ice. So Vanilla Ice comes and does a rap album, and you go,
right,
dude, respect the culture, and
right.
that's always, you know, this is a tough audience. They're a very tough audience because
I learned that looking at the Twitter responses.
Yeah, well, there you go, and but it's also a very, very good audience. They're loyal, they are committed, they're vocal, they are absolutely 100% behind things until they're not. But that's the same as, like, you know, like the Comic-Con crazies. It's the same. 100%. It's the same vibe, and so I think that's the issue here, that there was all this talent, and this could have been genuinely amazing. But now it's sort of the bit that I think is valuable here has been discounted, which is the talent that was producing this thing has been discounted, and I think that's unfair. And I wish it wasn't, because I personally want to see better creatives come into this space, more talent come into this space, and show people what talent actually is. Because it's the thing that I care about. Like, I want to work with the most talented people I can, because they make everything better. And as you said, like, you work with people at Partisan and Lauren, they're like, sick, amazing. Just like, oh my God, give me more of this, please. But no one will get that because they're so turned off by the messaging and the scripting. And it was such a shame for me.
I mean, I will say, you know, it is a trilogy. It's meant to be a trilogy. So
all right,
you know, as sure, I'm just saying, like, with any narrative, you know,
there's a redemption plot coming.
I would withhold like end of day judgment until sort of the entire story is told.
I know, but that's the thing though. You get like one shot, you know.
Sure,
in like Percy Jackson got 2 films, Harry Potter got 10, whatever it was, 8, and like that is, you know, that's a testimony to just how differently they got those 2 beloved IPs, right or wrong. But you know,
I get it.
Anyway, I'm rooting for you and for Lauren and for your team, because I think the work is extraordinary and is like, particularly given the constraints. I remember we did a stream when the project was first announced, and then they said, yeah, this is coming out in July. I was like, nope. But you did it.
June 8th. I mean, I personally did not join the project until the end of March.
Oh God.
So
was it sticky at the end? Were you like pulling all nighters? Like just just sending shit to the render farm, going, please don't fall down.
At the end, no, I think we were burning the candle at both ends in the beginning. I think, you know, just from a practical production standpoint, like, I'm in LA, Lauren's in LA, Partisan's in LA, Partisan's also in France and UK, but our office, this group was in LA. You know, Picnic was in the UK. Light is in France. Invisible North, the agency, is in New York City. Coinbase is here and there. And then we had crew in New York. We had crew in LA. So the Zooms alone, you know, I was up at, you know, we would start with Light usually around like 7 a.m. And then it just became, because of the amount of work that had to go into any given day and the sort of the approval process, like not only coming up with decisions internally in terms of the production team, but then having to vet it with the agency and then the client and then getting it signed off and going all the way back to Light the next day. So Eileen and I would joke, you know, like we were up at 7 and it was meeting. And then around like 10 p.m., I could sort of like sign off and actually do like the line producing of it all and making sure we're on budget and things like that. It was, I don't think I saw my wife for a few months, but it was challenging. Honestly, like what I can say about the space as someone who's new to it is it does have a very indie film feel right now, which is a sort 100%. Of like I originally came from, which I love. Yeah. Like anyone can get in the space insofar as I can tell. Obviously, this project had Coinbase behind it. It had a lot of resources, but I do feel like there is still a Wild West in a good way opportunity for a lot of like creatives and people, that storytellers, and you have all this IP that is out there that is NFTs or whatnot, and they don't have stories yet, or if they do, they're sort of very they're in their infancy. So like I do think there is a space to continue to explore, and I think, you know, I think the way in which we use the community and allowing people to like vote on things and sort of be a part of the process, I think is fascinating. And I'm not like an NFT. Actually, it's not true. I bought my first NFT, which is like the Batman cowl. And even in that, like I get, you know, you get emails to like vote on story points and stuff like that. And as someone that's
is that with is that Jose Delbo? Is that part of his collection?
It's the Palms, I think, did it. This is
Oh,
like
right.
the
Okay.
DC
Yeah.
NFT universe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
a sucker for Batman. I was like, I don't have an NFT. This will be my first one, like just cause. But being in the process now and being someone that like has the NFT and then can vote on things that like will matriculate down into like an actual storytelling process is really cool, right? That sort of like sense of community. I think that animation technology is getting so much better that eventually it will have the flexibility, like the bend don't break ability to absorb more sort of like communal interactivity, if that's even a word. But
it's all, I mean, it's also things like Unreal Engine, real time, like virtual production, these kind of things, motion capture. Like I play around with motion capture and we're building a studio ourselves, but like face capture, it's not there yet.
Right.
Like it's too restrictive, too weird. But like the ability to reduce the, I guess the prototyping phase of animation through these kind of things, really fascinating. But like, I don't know, like a well-crafted animation is always going to take a long time because it has to be specific and unique and weird, and it's not a template that you can just load in. It's somebody dreamt it up and then they moved it, and then they moved further forward, and then they moved it again. They're like, it's a journey. I always say, like, there are two jobs I think people should do in life. One is answering phones, and the other is rotoscoping. Just spend an entire day rotoscoping, and then let's talk. You know,
we not only did we have to like get this done, but we had to explore what styles of animation. Rotoscoping was one of them. It's like, do we go shoot some of this and rotoscope some of the scenes, especially the stuff where it's
and
like,
then he went, no, that's a bad idea.
Really bad idea. No time. Yeah. I mean, you touched on it earlier. We just talking about sort of like the time it takes and the time that goes into this stuff. Like when you start up any project, especially with people that aren't in the animation space, it is like the first weeks, months, truly maybe never, is like, here's how animation works. Here's animation 101 as I'm making this project with you. And it's like, well, why does it cost that much? Just, you know, go draw it. It's like, okay, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of energy. If you want changes, it sort of goes back to the start of the process. There's an artist who's interpreting what they want this character to look like or this background to look like, and then there's a client that has their own expectations, and you have to find a way. Like any film, right? If you're writing a movie and I'm producing it, we have a director, like the three of us already have an idea of what that film is going to be. It's not going to be what it is because we're all going to bring our own ideas to it. And the hope is like all three of those ideas come together and marry and turn into something even better than any of us thought of individually. So it's that sense of collaboration, which is the most difficult part of any project. But when it does come together, and I can say, like, I feel like it did in terms of like visually on this project for sure. And the animation is something that I think we can all be really proud of. And Lauren, Lord knows, worked her butt off. So it was,
it shows. And I hope that people can understand that what that creative vision was able to do was pull together a whole bunch of different things in a really exciting and really dynamic way, and that is no mean feat. It's a tough skill, and she deserves all the credit there. So listen, Brendan, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about this. This is home base for me, and I hope people who are watching got a sense of that. This is a space and a craft which I care deeply about, and it is a craft, and it demands to be respected as a craft. And Brendan, your role in bringing it to life should be respected as well. So thank you so much for taking the time with us.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me. I hope I could shed some light onto the process of it all. Animation's a large ship to move, so
it is. But also, we can look forward to parts 2 and 3, and I'm really curious to see where the story goes and how you mix these two worlds of the Degens and the Bored Ape IP as well. It's going to be fun.
Yep.
Thanks. Cheers. Well,
yeah,
from
cheers.
the Defiant, this was the Open Metaverse show, and we'll be back next week with more of the same. I don't know who the guests are yet, but that's the way we roll. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.